Nigerian doctors say they will not support the strike by other workers in the health sector. That really seems to be the big story here. The doctors, through the Nigerian Medical Association, also described the union of the other health workers, JOHISU, as illegal. NMA President Michael Girima warned the government against acceding to JOHISU's demands. Well, we have a medical doctor and public affairs analyst, Dr. Dokun Adedeji, with us in the studio. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Morning, thank you.
Okay, we're also expected to be joined via phone from Benin City, the Edo State capital, the president of the National Association of Nurses and Midwives, Abdrafiu Adeniji on phone. Good morning and thanks for joining us also.
Thank you, TVC team.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. All right, let's begin with you, Dokun, right here in the studio with us. Doctors say they are not in support of this strike by JOHISU, that as a matter of fact, JOHISU is illegal and that government should not accede to their demands. I've been trying to make sense of this.
You know, there's something that bothers me in this country, the sense of dissonance that is within the system. I don't know much about JOHISU, whether they're illegal, but the important thing is if the group of people work in the health sector, somebody has to listen to them. You know, the thing that we all forget, the ultimate person that is important in the health sector is the patient. And the doctor alone cannot manage the patient. And there are other people within the system that works with the doctors. In the hospital, for instance. So I think we must find accommodation. It's so important because if we fight amongst ourselves, the person who suffers is the patient.
All right, let's get to Benin City now. Abdrafiu Adeniji is on phone joining us there. Now, Abdrafiu, can you give us updates? What is really the call for this strike right now? We know that there was an agreement with the government in 2017 in September. And from the report we got, government has not lived up to its part of the bargain. But give us a refresh our minds as to what the demands are this time around.
Oh, thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians and the TVC team. Joint Health Sector Union Networks is coming together of registered trade unions that are three under NLC, National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria, and the NASU. Another TUC, we have Ayutri and HAP and NUHAP. We come together as a Joint Sector Union Joint Action Committee, known as JOHISU, and we are negotiating with government not only condition of service or remuneration for health workers. We have as part of our negotiation with government how the health sector will come back to normalcy, how harmony will be restored in health sector, how infrastructural development of the health sector will be will not only be a mouth service, will be a practical thing. We are talking about policy that will increase healthcare financing in this country. We are talking about how health workers will be able to deliver their services to the end user. And apart from this, we are also asking for our rights, which include the adjustment of current salary, which has been done for our counterparts as medical doctors. We do not grudge anybody. And we are not surprised that NMA will say, don't attend to these people. And we are not deterred by that. I could recall that when they were on strike, I was interviewed. And what I said is that if it is the interest of the patient, let the demands of the NMA be attended to. By and large, we have as the terms of agreement, 26 September 2017, after a strike, that was that the reconciliation was brought about by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, and we signed an agreement for a 13-point demand that the government acceded to, and then was promising that in 5 weeks' time they will be able to achieve. 5 weeks are turned to 6 months, and that is why in February we reminded them with 21 days ultimatum. Apart from this, we have also given another 30 working days ultimatum given on 30th March 2018, which is expiring on the 17th day of April 2018. And we believe...
All right, let me just come in very quickly here, Abdurafiu Adeniji. When you called off that September 2017 strike after 9 days, government agreed to meet you halfway somewhat. And as a matter of fact, the Minister of Health, Isaac Adewale, has said that most of your demands are already been met. What can you tell us about government side of the deal in terms of what government has been able to do, and why you still insist on going on strike if government is really doing something?
Well, that is to Professor Adewale's maybe belief. And I want to urge him to look physically into the issue in his ministry there, and he will see that if all these things have been attended to, there is no need for all these crises. We agree that the promotion and arrears was paid to some of our people, and uniform allowance still pending, and all these things are those things they said they will achieve in 5 weeks. But in summary, those things are yet to be attended to. And if they have been attended to, the government have the record. They should be able to tell Nigerians which of these things they have met. They have not met anything except the payment of the promotion arrears out of about 13-point demand.
All right, let me stay with you before we let you go, Abdurafiu. How far are you going to go if the government does not do anything different from what it is right now?
Well, as peace-loving citizens of this country, our hope and aspiration is that when there are crises like this, we come to the table and then we meet at a point. We have an indefinite strike of which nothing can deter us. We have had the threat of no work, no pay. We have had the threat of termination of appointments. We had the threat of even intimidation and whatever the government will want to do. And that's why we have gone through the length and breadth of Nigeria to seek the referendum from our members. And our members are resolute this time around because they are even losing confidence in this negotiation that is not producing anything for the Nigerian system and has not met their own need as well.
Okay, what was the outcome of your April the 5th meeting with government? You did have a meeting with government on the 5th of April. What was the outcome of that meeting? What came out of it?
Well, the outcome was that the government has been led by the Minister of Labour and Employment, took up the assignment from the Federal Ministry of Health, and then give evidence that they have contacted the President of the country, and the President has directed the Secretary to the Federal Government of Nigeria to coordinate a meeting within the Minister of Finance, Minister of Health, the Budget Office, salaries and wages, to be able to, because all these cost implications have been calculated, and then they are to meet to tell us how they are going to meet our need. Well, they were to meet yesterday, but we are yet to be informed of the outcome of their meeting.
All right. National President of the Nigeria Association of Nurses and Midwives, Abdurafiu Adeniji, thank you very much for talking to us from Benin City, Edo State.
Thank you very much, the TVC team, and thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Adeniji, let's come back to you here. When it comes to the health sector, we've had many of the strikes before, and after a while, it calmed down where we weren't hearing so much of strike, and Nigerians felt that everything would have been taken care of. Now we're back to the issue of strikes again. It is either in the education sector or in the health. What do you think really should be done to put an end to all of these?
Honestly, it is very depressing to observe that we need to get to this point before anything gets done. I've always said, I mean, if you work in a corporate setup, you have KPIs, and then you have assessment, and then somebody says you've done well this year, and so on. Does that happen in a public sector? No, it doesn't. That is why a man can be a minister for 8 years, and then you can't see anything tangible that is done, and then we still are okay with it. You see, what worries me in this country is that we think self alone. There is never a collective sense of well-being in our nation. So each person sees himself just a part, not a part of a whole. And so we have all this kind of dissonance. What is happening? The health sector is in a bad shape, I can tell you that. And it's always been in a bad shape. You see, but what worries me is in between strikes, what changes? What has changed? You know, one thing that...
Especially when government says, okay, we're going to meet you halfway. In the case of Johesu, they called off a strike in September of 2017, 9 days after.
Right.
And government promised we will keep our own side of the bargain in terms of salary adjustments, promotion arrears, improved work environment and all of that. And government is saying, yes, we have, you know,
done a bit.
Done a bit.
But you find out what the gentleman said was that only...
Like the payment of promotion arrears, for example.
You see, that is usually what happens. That's what I was going to get to. Many times when we see this strike that seems altruistic, or improve facilities, the primary purpose is remuneration. And so when that is satisfied a bit, everybody goes back. What happens in terms of infrastructural development? What happens in terms of the physical changes that you want? What happens in terms of welfare? Where does the patient stand in all of this? Is always amorphous. You never get it. Until then they come. They then say, look, when people sit down to have agreement, what are the milestones?
Yes.
By so time you do this, by so time we do this, by so time, and then so we can follow the milestone. And then so when the things are brought out to people, when we had a strike the last time, these are the things we talked about, not to be shrouded in mystery, only to resurface when there's another reason for strike. Look, honestly, I am disturbed by strikes in the health sector.
Especially how it will affect patients, who are the ones that will be at the receiving
end. I worked
in
the teaching hospital before. I left because I couldn't stand the emotional trauma I was getting myself as a doctor. Because it was depressing. And I'm talking about like 30 years ago. And there is nothing that has improved over those years. And yet there have been strikes almost every year. Talking about infrastructure. If you go to LASA, the hospital environment for me, yeah, you call it a hospital, but for me it's like a model park. That is not the way. In
spite of the improvement.
In spite of the improvement, you paint, you do all those, but it's so choking. And then you see people just loitering, people frustrated by what they see. They come to hospital at 6 a.m. to see a doctor that comes in at 11 o'clock, and who sees 5 patients and walks away at 12:30. Hey, that cannot be the way we want our people to be.
All right, there are calls in some quarters to go into private partnership with the government when it comes to the health sector, even though the unions have kicked against that. But that if there is private sector participation, there's going to be more monitoring, more efficiency, and more effectiveness.
Maybe in a little sense, but people consider the economic factor that comes with that. Because if you're going to get me as a businessman to get involved with the hospital, I'm going to think about what I put in and what comes in. I don't have a problem with having some facilities like that. You see, what has happened in that is the collapse of the system. When Professor Ransom Kuti was minister, the primary issue in this country that we don't face what should be faced. Primary health care is so important that we should do that.
The foundational.
The foundation. Look, why should a man with malaria be at LASUS? Why would a man with a wound be at LASUS? That is taking care of the primary sector, and immunization, and all those things. If we do all those things and we get health close to the people, with also its attendant consequences of getting people to walk around the place and provide them facilities and all that, we will be in a better place. So when general hospital or teaching hospital is working, they're working in a tertiary category and then taking away all the stress we're seeing. But the thing is, I don't think there's a policy I don't, if there's a policy, it is not a working policy that speaks to the situation of our nation. Until we sit down, look, what pains me, we have human rights, we have all CSOs. The only thing we care about is what is noisy.
And now there seems to be a crack in the health sector where the NMA feels that Johesu's strike is targeted at the NMA. It's difficult to wrap one's mind around that.
You know why that is so?
How do we, yes,
you know why that is so? It's because of remuneration.
Okay.
Because they know that, okay, they've just agreed with the doctors, maybe we'll pay you 10,000 naira. And then these people are making us, and then they pay them 7,500, 8,000, and then that is close to the doctor, and they say, hey, I'm the head of this team. Well, look, I don't see where there should be a need for competition in the health sector. There must be a dichotomy as to what to do. The thing is, look, let's not run away from the fact the doctor is the head of the medical team. But Wole Soyinka says a tiger does not need to proclaim his tigritude. When we all come to work, the primary purpose is get our patients well. Yes. And so how we do it is about symbiotic working together. But what I see here is competitive. I want to prove that this is my importance. Why should we need that? The patient suffers.
At the expense of the health sector.
Absolutely. So,
all right, we have to leave you here now. Dr. Dokun Adedeji, thank you so much for coming on.
The pleasure remains mine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.